Well, hello again. Welcome again to another episode of Down to Earth but Heavenly Minded. And I'm your host, Irv Rich. And today, as we're going on through the Gospel of John, we're coming to the point where Christ is going to be betrayed and arrested. And this is in the Easter season that I'm doing this, and it's a great time to be doing these uh, podcasts. So let's go to our scripture. We'll read it, and hopefully tomorrow I might have two broadcasts, or at least prepare two broadcasts. So as we get up on Easter, I can talk a little bit more about the resurrection of Christ. Uh, he has not gone to the cross yet in the Gospel of John, but everything has been prepared. We did the upper room scenes where the Lord talked to his own, but then he uh, departed and went to the Garden of Gethsemane. We looked at his prayer last time and how he prayed for his own, prayed for us, prayed in agony, and also when he comes to the last prayer before the cross, he actually does pray and ask the Father to remove the cup if it's possible, but he knew it wasn't, and he had his eyes fixed on Calvary. So let's just go to our next scene here, and we'll read our scripture. We're looking at the betrayal and the arrest of Jesus. So when Jesus had spoken these words, and he went out with his disciples across the brook of Kedron, which they which they was a garden which he had his disciples enter. This is the Garden of Gethsemane. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, having uh, recruited a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priest and the Pharisees, went there, and with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, "Who do you seek?" He already knew this, but he said this. They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." And Jesus said to him, "I am he." And this is that great I am again. Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. What a scene. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. This is the power of his word. So he asked them again, "Who do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go." This was to fill the word that he had spoken. "Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Jesus said to Peter, "Put away your sword into your sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me?" Well, Jesus now is facing Ananias and Caiaphas. So the band of soldiers and the captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and bound him. First, they led him to Ananias, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who advised the Jews that it would be expedient that one man should die for the people. Remember, that was a prophecy. He didn't say it of his own, but because of the office that he held. Now, Peter denies Jesus, and Jesus had told Peter he'd do this. Simon Peter following Jesus, and so did another disciple, and I believe that was John, because he wrote these words. Since the disciples' walk was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus. Since that disciple, that was John, was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watch at the door, and brought Peter in. And the servant girl at the door said to Peter, You also are not one of these men's disciples, are you? He said, I am not. See, he's denying. Now the officers had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves, and Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. There's quite a story on this portion here. Peter's with the world and those that hated Jesus. He was among them, a place that he shouldn't have been. Now we come to the high priest that questions Jesus. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching, and Jesus answered him, I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in temples where all Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret, and this is true. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me. What I said to them, they know what I said. Well, when he had said these things, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, Is that how you answer the high priest? And Jesus answered him, If what I said is wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But what I have said is right, why do you strike me? Ananias then sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. So here, this was just the father-in-law of the high priest. Now Jesus denied Jesus again. He's already denied him. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. So they said to him, You also are not one of his disciples, are you? And he denied it and said, I am not. One of his servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter cut off, asked, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter again lied. He denied it. And at once the rooster crowed. Now Jesus was taken before Pilate, and they had led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. It was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters, so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. Oh, these Jews, they were such hypocrites. So Peter went outside to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" And they answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourself and judge by your own law." And the Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill the words that Jesus had spoken, to show by what kind of death he was going to die. My kingdom is not of this world, and this is true. Well, so Pilate entered his headquarters again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did they say it to you about me?" And Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation, the chief priests, have delivered you over to me. What have you done?" And Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would not have been fighting that I may not, or my service would have been fighting that I may not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not from this world." And I am so glad it isn't. But but Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You said that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness of the truth, and everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." But Pilate says exactly what the world is saying. Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went back outside to the Jews and told them, "I find no guilt in him, but you have a custom that I should release one man to you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?" And I believe he was saying this mocking. And they cried out, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber. Well, here we have a sinful man being released, and the King of Glory being taken to be crucified. And this is how I'm going to end this podcast today, as we think about the betrayal and the arrest of Jesus and all that transpired. And we've covered the whole chapter today, but the reason I did is because it has so much information in it, and it all runs right together. So with that said, and like I say, I'm going to upload this, and as I record this, I'm recording it on Good Friday. But actually, Christ went through this before Good Friday, so I'm a little bit behind. And hopefully tomorrow I might be able to create a couple podcasts. I'll do a special one on the resurrection. But until then, bye for now. And we'll see you on the next episode.